Welcome back to Never Enough Novels. If you're trying to find new ways to read more books, then today's video is for you. I'm sharing 3 simple mindset changes that will help you read more throughout your life. This goes beyond just try listening to audiobooks or put down your phone. Instead, these are 3 ways that you can change the way you think about reading to help you fit in more books. There are endless lists that give you tips for how to read more, whether it's bring a book with you everywhere or change up your reading format, but I wanted to share a few new tips that are a little bit different today. I want to focus on less tangible options and more on our mindset towards reading so that you can find books that are going to be more enjoyable and that you're going to want to read. I'm a firm believer that you'll spend any free time you have doing things that you enjoy. So if you're not 100% into the book that you're reading, you're going to end up doing other things instead of picking up that book. My simple tips will help you ensure that you're reading more because you want to, and not just because you're trying to meet a reading goal or out of obligation or guilt. My first tip is to embrace the DNF. So in the book world, DNF stands for do not finish, and it's a pretty hot topic. Some readers fully support the idea that you need to finish every single book that you start, while others, like me, DNF books with ease all the time. I can understand why you would want to finish every book that you start. I mean, you've already invested time into it. Maybe the book will get better and you just don't realize it now. However, I promise there are even better reasons to do not finish a book. If you're not truly connecting with a book, I often find that I will start to read it more slowly or tend to do other things instead of reading. So as a result, a book that you might normally finish in 2 weeks instead takes a whole month to finish. All of that adds up to less books in total that you're reading over the course of a year. Plus, forcing yourself to finish at a book that you don't enjoy or you're not getting anything out of means that you're going to end up doing other things instead of reading. And it's harder to start new books if subconsciously you realize that you might end up having to force your way through something that you do not enjoy. When you embrace DNFing books, yes, you might lose a little bit of time at the beginning when you're trying something out, but overall, your reading quality of life will improve and you'll end up finishing more books over time. My second tip is to choose your next book wisely. So I believe there's almost nothing more important to a reader than the simple option of selecting your next read. I will admit that I honestly detest trying to pick which book I want to read next. The options are truly endless, and I'm always worried that a book might not live up to expectations, or I might not like it as much as someone else did. Plus, like I mentioned before, I know that if I'm not actually enjoying a book, then I'm going to spend more time scrolling on my phone or watching a TV show instead. If it feels like work, or if I'm not invested in the story, I'm just not going to pick that book up. And I found there are so many bad reasons for picking a certain book as my next read. That could mean reading a book that a friend recommended or forced on you, or trying to read the latest new release that I saw that's all over Bookstagram, or slogging through something that my book club picked out, or maybe even just a quick pickup that I got from the library and feel like I now have to read. Inherently, those are good reasons, but if it means that you're reading a book that's not for you, then they can turn into something that's not great. By focusing on exactly what type of book you're interested in reading and not necessarily what was recommended to you or what's popular, you're going to end up with books that are truly for you and that you're going to enjoy so much more. And ultimately, that will lead to you choosing to read more in any free time that you have. I cannot stress enough that it's worth it to make a concentrated effort when you're picking your next book to match it to the exact mood that you're in that moment. Do you want to dive into a heavier historical fiction novel or read a lighter romance? Maybe you're more in the mood for a twisty thriller that you know you're going to devour in 2 days. Whatever it ends up being, when you actively focus on picking your next read, overall you're going to read these books so much faster and get through more books in a year. My last tip is to find your ideal reading habit. It's easy to tell people to read at a certain time of day, like every single night you should try and read for 30 minutes before you go to sleep. But you may wind down in a completely different way at the end of the day and fall asleep after 3 pages. So obviously that routine, which works really well for me, isn't going to work for you. The more important mindset is to figure out which routine works for you on a consistent basis. So where and when in your day are you most likely to pick up a book or an audiobook? For example, do you have a lengthy period of time while you're waiting in the school pickup or drop-off line? Or do you have an opportunity to read for half an hour while you're at lunch at work? Maybe you'd rather sneak in a few pages before you get up and start your day in the morning. Or if you have a lengthy commute, you can listen to more audiobooks while you're driving. There are endless opportunities to find time to read throughout the day, but the most important thing is figuring out which of those periods of time work the best for you in your schedule. So rather than forcing that reading time into your schedule where it best works for someone else, you need to look at your habits and see where you can fit in reading in a time that will be best for you. And then you'll be more likely to repeat the habit over and over. Although all of these tips are hopefully helpful and will give you more opportunities to find time to read throughout the day, remember that the number of books you read is never a contest. Any amount of reading makes you a reader. And at the end of the day, as long as you're happy with how much you're reading and what you're reading, that's what matters most. And if you need some book recommendations or where to start, here's a list of my favorite books of 2024 so far. Make sure you hit like and subscribe to see even more of these videos in the future.